Good morning, Karolina.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the channel. For anyone watching, Karolina Szweda is joining us today for our latest installment of Journeys in Coaching. And Karolina is a leadership and confidence coach specializing in supporting ambitious introverts, highly sensitive people, HSPs, and neurodiverse professionals with their challenges at work. Karolina draws on a decade of experience in marketing and leadership roles, has a global perspective from living in 5 different cities around the world, and has recently qualified as an EMCC senior practitioner after completing the Animas diploma in coaching. So it's a pleasure to welcome you to the channel, Karolina. I'd love to start by asking you if you could tell us more about the work that you do as a coach for introverts and highly sensitive people.
Oh, of course. Well, thank you so much for that intro. It's always so nice to hear someone else talk about me. Right. So, after receiving my training from Animas, I decided to focus on a group that is very close to my heart, on supporting people that are like me, which are ambitious introverts and highly sensitive people. My work is focused mainly on work-related challenges. We talk a bit about work-life balance and hobbies and managing energy, but we're mainly focused on building confidence and leadership skills within work settings. Mm, and yeah, my general goal is to help introverts become quietly confident without having to become these loud extroverts that they're not. So I want them to find a way to feel comfortable in their own skin. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, thanks for sharing, Karolina. I wonder, for anyone watching, if we could sort of define what do we mean by introvert, and what do we mean by HSP, highly sensitive people? As I know that there's a few mixed definitions of introvert and extrovert, and I think it feels like it's one of those that's evolved in recent time.
Yes, you're definitely right. And I think there are a lot of myths and misconceptions around what introverts are really. Um, the definition that I use, the definition that is used by most researchers and experts on introversion, is that introversion is really all about how you manage your energy. So if you recharge by being on your own, if you enjoy being on your own, you're probably an introvert. Whereas if you feel like you're being recharged and more energized by being around people and you don't want to leave that party, you don't want to go back home, you might be an extrovert. So that's a very simple differentiation. Of course, within the group of introverts, you can also have different types of introverts. Like there are no two the exact same introverts out there, I'd say. One other classification that we could use is within the group of introverts, you can have introverts with very high social skills. So people who are super outgoing and friendly and easy to talk to, but they still prefer to go back home at the end of the day, just chill, relax, have some quiet time. But then you can also have introverts who have more social anxiety, for example. They're shy, they don't really want to interact with people that much. So their social skills are a bit lower. So yeah, even within introversion, it's a spectrum. So that's on the introversion note. When it comes to high sensitivity, it's not just about social interactions. It's more about all of the stimuli around us. So highly sensitive people are very attuned to their environment, and we absorb all of the information from our surroundings. And what I mean by that is not only what we hear from other people saying, but also all of the sounds and noises and smells, sensations on our skin, all of the feelings. We feel everything more extremely than other people. We think more intensely than other people. Overthinking is a big challenge for many highly sensitive people and introverts. So yeah, I'd say this is kind of the description, a very generalistic one. Of course, there are very nuanced characteristics, but in general, if you feel like you get emotional quite easily, or if you feel like you get overwhelmed quite easily, you might be a highly sensitive person. Yeah, but it's a major simplification when we put it like that.
Yeah, well, no, thanks for those definitions, Carol. And I'm really hearing that there's like you say, a spectrum and a scale in each of these definitions, and especially when you combine introversion or extroversion with being highly sensitive and perhaps characteristics of social anxiety, maybe overthinking. There's so many nuances and complexities to add to these definitions. And I look, as a highly sensitive person myself, I really liked your definition of highly attuned, because I feel when you say to someone who's not aware of it, what highly sensitive, I'm a highly sensitive person, I'm a HSP, they can look at you a bit funny and, all right, okay. What do I do with this information? What are you trying to tell me? Whereas to say I'm highly attuned, it feels like it doesn't have that kind of that shadow of like negative, maybe that negative shadow under it, implying that it's a weakness in some way. Highly attuned sort of implies that it's a pure strength. To say I'm highly attuned, it's like saying I'm high focused and I'm incredibly present and able to scan the environment and pick up on lots of little details. And who wouldn't see that as a great strength, right?
Oh my God, thank you for saying this. Absolutely. And from my experience, I also heard some feedback from a few different people saying, like, why would someone admit to be highly sensitive or introverted? Like, why do you target such a group? Like, nobody wants to admit that. But the thing is that if you are a highly sensitive person, you might be masking that because of this narration in the society. So what I do through my work is making sure that we don't see this as a weakness, but we find all of the strengths and positive sides to being highly attuned. And yeah, really leverage that and use it as our superpower.
I love that. I recently did a course with Animas, a neurodiversity course, and it was teaching us that for each type of neurodiversity, whether it be sort of dyslexia, autism, ADHD, and there's so many of them, and you could combine them as well. And stereotypically, well, my former knowledge before the course was just of perhaps some of the negative, downsides of these these labels, and what I didn't realize and what the course showed me, that is actually this great strength in each one of them. For example, the dyslexia off the top of my head, well, a strength can be that perhaps a bit of difficulty with spelling and grammar and reading and writing, but in terms of people with dyslexia, they tend to have incredible skills around seeing the long-term vision, the bigger picture, and make incredible leaders. And I've experienced that. I've got some friends who are dyslexic and are fantastic leaders and are visionaries and big thinkers and strategists. But you wouldn't necessarily put two and two together before taking a course. And I guess you're like you say, you specialize in this space of helping people to see their strengths rather than kind of focusing just on the weaknesses, which are very apparent. I know I'm aware of them.
Oh, definitely. And sometimes, very often actually, when my clients reach out to me in the first place, they mention that they have all of these weaknesses, that they are really struggling in a workplace because, well, our systems like schools and workplaces, they do favor more extroverted traits. So many introverts and highly sensitive people, they just struggle to fit in, and also to be seen as valuable when they are truly themselves. So they feel like they need to put that mask on and pretend a bit more. But then when we pretend to be extroverted, we just exhaust ourselves even more. So yeah, it's sometimes like a vicious cycle. So really my role is to just help everyone accept themselves as they are. And there are so many beautiful sides of being introverted or highly sensitive. And it's almost like a waste if we don't leverage them. So yeah, I absolutely agree.
Thanks, Karolina. I wondered if I could dive even a little bit deeper with you. I know that part of your work, you specialize in helping new managers and new leaders with their first leadership roles, transitioning from perhaps being a subject matter expert into the manager, the boss. And I wondered if you could speak a little more about the work that you do with your clients, helping them to face the challenges as either an introvert or HSP. I know that myself as a kind of a HSP with extroverted tendencies, I absolutely love being around people and feel recharged by them, but I can also feel very drained depending on the environment and the atmosphere in a workplace and a team, for example. I wonder if you could speak a little more about the work that you do.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I'll try to be as focused as possible because, of course, different people have slightly different challenges.
Yeah, please. I mean, open it up. Open it up.
Yes.
It's not just about me. I just feel inclined to share.
No, of course. I'm worried that I'm going to be all over the place in a moment, but hey, we have time.
Okay.
So many introverts and highly sensitive people, because of the reasons that we just talked about, they struggle with a lot of self-doubt and overthinking and really analyzing every single thing they said, they wrote, they published. Like a lot is going on for them. So especially when there is a transition from being an individual contributor where your job is to deliver particular results, and you're this, like, I don't want to say independent player, but you basically do a piece of work. These challenges exist, but then when you become a leader or a people manager and suddenly your responsibilities are not only around delivering a piece of work, but also, for example, managing budgets or creating a strategy or managing people. Suddenly these things become quite overwhelming. And that overthinking that usually happens and that self-doubt does not help, because it takes so much more time to make decisions. Um, so what I often do with these first-time managers and also first-time leaders, I want to say, because I also work with a few people who are first-time business owners or freelancers. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a corporate managerial role, is to help them in this transition. Because what goes with this transition as well is setting boundaries, setting and managing expectations, being more strategic with how we allocate our efforts and energy, because we no longer are responsible just for that one piece of work. I'm sorry, I'm like simplifying it a lot, but like when you're this individual contributor, your job description is very like easy to understand most of the times, whereas when you're a leader or a manager, it's more nuanced. And sometimes this in itself can be really overwhelming because if there is a bit of vagueness, suddenly most highly sensitive people feel pressured to perform at 110%, because if there's a bit of this vagueness, it means that, oh my God, well, I need to prove myself. I need to exceed expectations in all of these areas. And it becomes very overwhelming and exhausting. And burnout is a very common theme for many introverts and highly sensitive people. So, yeah, this is this is the reality that so many people struggle with, and we don't really talk about it that often because we kind of feel maybe ashamed. Maybe we don't want to admit that this working style is not working for us. So my job is to help these people find some self-care in all of that, some sort of harmony. Mm, and I help them build self-leadership skills first so they can manage their own stuff that is going on internally. Especially for highly sensitive people, it's often very intense emotions related to different work-related challenges. Not even challenges. Sometimes we see a message from someone, a simple message, and we start overthinking it. And suddenly we have in our head all of the reasons why they hate us or why they they don't like the work that we do. So yeah, did that make sense? Because I was trying to like think about different people that I work with, but each person is focused on slightly different part of the journey. So yeah, I hope that resonates with anybody that's watching this.
I'm sure it will, and I love that you calling out that actually that there's no one size fits all in this. There's no one solution. There's no one problem. There's lots of different problems, different solutions, and it a bit like your coaching. It's bespoke and it's custom for each person, meeting them where they're at and giving them the solution. Well, helping them to find the solution for their own problem that's unique to them. There was so much you said in there I like, particularly around the job description piece, and that I heard on a recent, again, an Animas leadership course, a definition of leadership that made me laugh was a period of chronic stress punctuated by many periods of acute stress. So it just defined leadership as just a whole world of stress. And I'm wondering, for people, and I know that some of the work you do is on mindset shifts. I'm wondering how you help someone go from being like you described, an individual contributor in a team with a very clear job description, and they know what they're supposed to be doing, and they're probably excellent at it, and they're excelling. How do you help them with that mindset shift from going from being a member of a team to being the boss? As I know that one of the things I struggled with was letting go of the control and letting go of my old role, and found myself trying to do my new role as well as my old role. And I wondered if that's something you encounter,
Mm.
how to go about that mindset shift.
Mm. That example that you gave, that really resonates with me. And I can see that quite often. Okay, mindset shifts. Well, I always use all of the tools that I learned through Animas, which is helpful. But the one that is, I think, the most common is this shift between what are the internal expectations that we have of ourselves versus what is actually expected of us from our environment. Because what often happens, and again, I base this on the work that I do with the people that I work with, is that we feel like we have to prove ourselves and we have, like, the bar is super, super high. And there is no space for mistakes. There is no space for weaknesses. We need to be perfect at all times, all the time. Which is a particular mindset, right? Because as soon as I ask them, have you received feedback that you should be delivering more? I think 10 out of 10 times they say, well, no, but I feel like I should. So this simple question in itself usually helps to kind of crack through that mindset that I initially had, and we can start unpacking it, and it already feels lighter and like a relief in a way. So I feel like this one is the most popular one. Oh, there's one other question that I love to ask is, when was the last time you let yourself to be a beginner? And many first-time managers, they don't want to accept that they're doing this for the first time. they want to be great at it from day one. They don't want to admit that they're still learning and figuring things out. And it's a transition moving away from one role to another that is so much more layered and nuanced. So discussing this concept of being a beginner and doing something for the first time is a huge shift in itself as well. So yeah, I see these two all the time.
It's such a juxtaposition, isn't it? What do you mean have a beginner mindset? I'm supposed to be the boss and the leader. I'm supposed to have all the answers. And what do you mean put less pressure on myself? Why should I be looking for feedback? It should all come from within. But then when you start to unpack it, it's perhaps not that clear cut.
Yeah, exactly. We all have this vision of a leader that has all of the answers and can come up with the most creative ideas on the spot. Yeah, that's just not very healthy to think like that. Actually, very recently, I had a session with someone who struggles with the idea of staying silent to collect her thoughts, because she feels pressured. She's a very senior leader, and she feels like if she takes her time to think about her response, she feels like it's a weakness and other people are judging her and thinking that's, and then her narration starts and all of the excuses. But we started working around this mindset shift where we see the use of silence as a strength, because it shows that she's taking things seriously and she wants to take her time to provide a really good thought through answer rather than just something on the spot, just something to fill in the silence and say something just for the sake of contributing. So yeah, that's just another example of how we have a strange way of seeing leaders, because the most stereotypically
Typically.
thank you ways of describing a leader are not really what we value in leaders. So yet again, mindset shift.
I love it. We could spend the rest of the interview just talking about the definition of a leader and what they are meant to and not meant to do. My own leadership coach, he always says you should just be doing one of three things: removing blockers for your team, delegating excellently, or identifying and growing the skills and strengths of the team, or filling the gaps if they're there. But it's less about actually doing the team's work and more about stepping back and looking at the bigger picture and facilitating and enabling the team to grow and develop. And I always thought the best leader is one that could step away for a week or two and everything continues to go perfect, to go to plan and moves forward. Nothing ever goes perfectly, but things continue to happen, and kind of the team becomes like self-sustaining, and they're ultimately empowered, and they're not needing the leader all of the time to be present, but equally they know that the leader's got their back. So it's like the leader's kind of present when you need them to be, but they're not always there, like micromanaging you. It's a kind of a difficult balance to get, and I guess it does vary per sector as well. But yeah, broadly, I know that's my experiences of great leaders is kind of they're accessible and they're available when you need them to be, but then they also give you some space to grow and develop.
Yeah, everyone wants to work for a manager like that, right?
Yeah, probably everyone wants to be that manager, but it's easier said than done.
Well, for sure. And you know what? It actually reminds me of something that oh my God, I learned that in business school like 10 years ago, which was about different leadership styles. And the conclusion was that there is no perfect universal leadership style that will work for everyone, because you want to be a bit more handholdy or micromanagery with more junior people who are learning how to do things, and they need you to tell them and to show them how to do things. So you cannot be this super trusting leader that says, just figure it out, because they will not feel okay with that. Whereas when you work with more competent, more senior team that is trained and they know what they're doing, you don't want to micromanage them. You just want to let them do the work that they can do probably better than you do. So yeah, again, just another thing to think about, to just remove that pressure, because there is no perfect way of doing things. It's often very, it really depends on the circumstances, the team, the nature of work that you do. In times of crisis, when things are on fire, you don't want this leader who says like, well, who will volunteer an idea? No, you want someone to just like say how we are gonna proceed and just delegate ruthlessly. So yeah.
Absolutely. And just to add one extra comment on that, the leaders I felt the most empowered under are the ones who call out their own knowledge gaps and say, guys, I'm going to have to leverage your experience. I'm going to defer to your expertise here, because we need to solve this problem together. I haven't got all the answers. I don't feel like any of you have got all the answers individually, but collectively we will have a solution. We will find a solution. So let's get our heads together. And as a leader, to be able to say, guy, I don't have this answer. I don't, but so let's get around a table and let's figure out the answer. And if we don't have the answer, then let's find it elsewhere. Let's get some external advice and consultancy. I think just, being aware of your blind spot, and calling it out and saying, we don't know this thing has happened. This hasn't happened before. I haven't experienced this before. No one around this table has. So let's do things differently, rather than kind of trying to gloss over that and saying, oh, well, I've done this before, and maybe trying to fake it. That for me, it's just a sign of a great leader, to just call it out, be honest, open and honest.
And that's how you build trust. That's how you keep people around you.
Yeah. So you've dangled the carrot a couple of times, and I kind of I need a spotlight here. I want to move the spotlight around onto you, Karolina, and ask you about, you mentioned business school, and I know that you've got a background in kind of marketing and leadership roles, some high profile ones as well. And I'd love to ask you, what led you to making the shift from being in the world of marketing as a leader, from having had an education from business school, and then transitioning over to now being a coach?
Where do I even start? Right. So I started my career in marketing because that's something that I studied at uni. So it felt like an obvious choice. And I've been doing marketing across different types of organizations. I worked at a very small agency. I worked at a massive insurance corporation. I worked at a venture capital fund, an early stage startup, like different types of organizations, different types of environments, always in marketing though. And I've been enjoying it a lot. It's a lot of fun. It's a very creative type of a role, which I always loved. But I always felt like something was missing. I couldn't quite put my finger on what the thing was. But I just thought, hey, maybe this is life, maybe you just don't get all of the answers. Maybe you never get like fully satisfied. So, okay, whatever. I kind of let it be. But it kept like nudging me every now and then. And I started having some doubts around the tech environment in particular. Because for the past 4 years, I've been working in the tech space, both on the venture capital side, so the investor side, and on the startup side. And it's an amazing environment, so fast paced, you learn so much, but I felt like it was super overwhelming because we were creating some of our own problems, if that makes sense. It's super difficult to talk about it, but I felt like we were doing things and then we had to clean up after ourselves. And I was struggling with that quite a lot. Because I felt like there's no clear strategy. I felt like we were whipping all over the place. And I need clarity. Like I need a good strategy. I went to this 10-day silent meditation course. I thought, let's just do it. I like a bit of a challenge, and not talking to people for 10 days sounds amazing. And during that meditation, because you meditate 10 hours per day for 10 days, it's pretty intense. I started having this insight that the part that's been missing was meaningful conversations and meaningful interactions. And I kind of learned that in my startup roles, because that wasn't just one of them, everything has been quite superficial. I'm not sure if that's the right word to use, but everything feels so fast paced. So we never stop and think things through. We just kind of move on to the next thing. And I felt like, I'm really feeling a lot of fulfillment. And I feel really energized when I talk with people one-on-one and we really deep dive into a particular challenge or celebration, whatever it is. I like to see what the layers are. And after that meditation, I didn't really know, okay, what do I do about this? I didn't really want to be a therapist, I guess. So I thought, okay, I'll just see what happens. And then, funnily enough, two separate people on very independent occasions within 2 months after finishing that meditation, they told me that they received coaching training and what coaching is. And they both said that they think I should do it. And I thought, okay, well, that's a sign, right? This is clearly a sign. Because two people that don't know each other said that. So I started researching that and I thought, okay, well, this makes more sense because like I said, I didn't want to be a therapist. I don't really like to be stuck in the past, talking about childhood and trauma. There is, of course, time and place for that. I've been to therapy several times myself, but I just don't feel like I could be able to function in that environment every day. Whereas coaching, hey, action-oriented, about the future, sounds amazing. So what I did, I hired a coach. I started working with a coach as a client. I experienced it firsthand. The most amazing, the most transformative experience of my life, probably. It still took me a few months to start the coaching training with Animas, but one day I made a decision. I started the course, and yeah, I haven't looked back since.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. If ever there was a testimonial for coaching and the power of coaching, it's right there.
Definitely.
I absolutely love that you shared how you shared your story there. And the first thing that came to mind is, well, anyone who does decide to get in touch and decides to, seek you out for coaching as a leader, maybe as a HSP, as a introvert, they've got the benefit of so much experience there from all your different roles, multi-sector, different environments, and then someone who's been on that 10-day silent meditation retreat, which of everyone I've heard that's spoken to, it's the best and worst thing ever. And then, that huge realization, and it feels like, the stars aligned and it led you to the Animas course. And it's lovely to hear that, your couple of friends recommended it and you trusted their recommendation. As often when I ask people how they found Animas, it tends to be a conversation around, I did an Excel spreadsheet and I did, I compared all the different providers, which is absolutely valid. But then it's equally great to hear someone who's found Animas through a recommendation. And what were your expectations of it, and how did it live up to those expectations or exceed them?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that before starting the course, I did zero research, which is so not on brand for me, because I usually tend to overthink, overanalyze, be super critical about things. In this case, I thought, like I said, everything was kind of pushing me in that direction. And the two people that I spoke to, they both received their training at Animas. So they both recommended Animas to me. So I thought, I'm not even going to research other places because I have the one already. But then when it comes to my expectations about the course right before starting it, I remember I was really concerned about spending my whole weekend studying in front of my laptop after a very intense work week. And I was really worried about that part. I love being outdoors on the weekends, moving my body as much as I can when I'm not by my desk. So it's just like, is this the right thing? But then the reality was amazing. Well, the training is so well structured that there is time for breaks, there is time for some downtime, there is time for more intense discussions. So it was structured in a way that at the end of the day, I was so energized that I could move mountains. And then on the Sunday mornings, I would usually wake up super early, get my coffee, and be so excited to start the course that I would be up at 7 and be like, 2 more hours? What? So yeah, I mean, the training was incredible. And I think going into it not having a lot of expectations around particular themes and the areas of coaching, I think that helped a lot, because I just entered the space really open-minded, really curious about what's going to happen. So yeah, I think this is pretty much it.
Great. Oh, thank you for sharing. It's interesting. I've observed a few people sort of talking about their journey towards success in their business, in their coaching journey, and it almost seems to be a prerequisite of success to need less information in order to make a decision. And I remember I used to be, and still am often, someone who needs all of the information, who researches the heck out of something, reads all the reviews, different platforms, even for different reviews, does an Excel spreadsheet with. And I've kind of moved away from that. And I'm wondering if what happened on that retreat for you, I'm wondering if it's what happened, similar to what happened to me when I went traveling for a year. I learned kind of what my intuition was. And I learned to tap into it, and I dialed it up from being super, super quiet to almost hardly even, could hardly even hear it, to really, really loud, and something that it's helped me, for example, define my brand for my business. Back in the day, I would have researched it so much and then just come to the conclusion of I'm not sure enough, therefore I won't bother. Whereas now I've just gone along with, it feels really right. And the few people I spoke to about it and the few thoughts I've had on it, even they have, you speak to coaches and they won't give you their opinion. They'll reflect back to you as you seem really enthusiastic. I can really see how, passionate you are about this. And, you know, 2 or 3 conversations like that led me to just thinking, oh, you know what, screw it, I'm going to do it. So, you know, I've done it, I've created that brand. Whereas, and yeah, it's just, you're nodding along. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this.
Mm. This resonates with me so much. I don't really know even where to start. I think, especially during that meditation course, I really saw the power of mm, removing all of the stimuli and just filtering out the noise. That is impossible to avoid in this day and age when we have our phone in our pocket, which is just bombarding us with information all the time. But during that meditation, well, we were meditating for 10 hours per day. We couldn't talk to anyone and we didn't have access to any technology. So you're on your own. And it feels super scary. And it was difficult on day 1 and day 2. But then on day 3, just you wish you're not gonna have to go back to this noisy world, because you hear yourself so clearly and you start noticing what is really true for you and what is assumed and what is kind of taught by the society or your parents or whoever. So that experience was really important for me. I mean, just 10 days. It's not that long, but it was really impactful on how I started valuing my intuition. So yeah, ever since I love taking so-called unplugged walks where I don't listen to anything. I just take a walk and listen to whatever is going on inside of me. Um, I love doing yoga. I love reading a book without any interruptions. So this has become such an important part of my self-care routine, I would say. Because especially as a highly sensitive person, you want to be reducing the stimuli from your environment. You want to be reducing everything that might overwhelm you. So going back to the work-related challenges, if I know that I have a super busy day at work with lots of meetings, with lots of traveling around the city, I know that I need to plan a very chill evening, and the next day also needs to be really chill so I don't push myself too much because I need that recovery time. Because otherwise, when I start pushing myself and pushing myself and I don't have time to tap into that intuition and listen to myself and notice, like, but why am I doing all of these things? And from the leadership point of view, your performance is so much better when you create that time and space for yourself to think and feel as well. Um, Many senior leaders, they make lots of decisions based on their gut feeling. It's not really like a rational decision that they make. They just feel what's right. So yeah, thank you for bringing up that point. I haven't thought about it for a while, but that's a super important part of my journey.
Thanks, Caroline. I feel that as we start to run out of time, I feel we could go on we could have a full interview based on the importance of switching off in a society that's more switched on than ever, I should say. And also, you know, one of the traps you can fall into in a leadership and a non-leadership role, just any job these days, is that creating that expectation yourself that you need to be switched on all of the time. You know, you need to respond to all notifications, all hours of the day and the night, the weekend, go on holiday. You got to make sure it's all, you know, because all of the apps and everything are always beeping at us. And I guess the expectation, what drives it is when we all do it. And none of us switch off at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and we're all still emailing and Teams chatting and Slack chatting with each other. And when does that stop? When do we unplug? And yeah, it's such a slippery slope. And as you say, it's just so important to actually listen to what that voice inside is telling us, and to be able to differentiate between the voice of kind of societal pressures, the voice of our parents, like conditioning, teachers as we're growing up, our manager, our colleagues, like have to kind of shush all of those voices and literally just hear your own voice. That just for me for years was completely lost. So I'd love to go on, but equally we are running low on time. So to sort of start to wrap up our conversation, I've been on your website. I highly recommend Karolina's 8 strategies to be highly confident at work and her personal user manual. I downloaded them. I thought they were so good that I actually ended up sending them off to a friend who is an introvert, and he said, "Oh, these are fantastic. Thank you so much." So I would, invite you, if there's anything else you'd love to share with people who are listening or reading and who would love to find out more about you and how they can get in touch and kind of what's going on in your world.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this as well. Definitely, if anybody wants to reach out, I think the easiest way is either through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn at Karolina Szweda. And then also you can contact me via my website. I have contact forms as well. My website is karolinaszweda.com. I hope my last name is easy enough to spell, but I'm sure it will be in the notes.
Link it.
And yeah, something I can definitely recommend is also subscribing to my newsletter, because I'm receiving so much amazing feedback about it. I send it every 2 or 3 weeks, so it's not too overwhelming, but I share very practical advice for introverts and highly sensitive people, some of my personal insights and stories and reflections. From what I hear, it's always a very enjoyable read. So if you want to have a glimpse into my own world, the newsletter is probably a great way to stay in touch. And then, of course, I publish lots of free resources, so you can just browse and see what piques your interest.
I really recommend them. I recommend your newsletter and your resources, as it's often newsletters can get sent out and they're kind of a bit of a sales kind of hook. And I feel yours offer so much value. And yeah, so I am enjoying them. I'm sure anyone else who signs up will enjoy them as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I always have this rule that you should be giving more value than asking for things back. So that's kind of the whole purpose behind this newsletter. I want to be sharing as much value as I can. And then if anybody at any point is interested in working together, they will have all of the great groundwork already, and they will have an insight into who I am as a person and how I approach coaching. So yeah, go ahead and subscribe if you want to.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Karolina. Thank you for your insights into who you are and someone who is moving mountains with her coaching. I am definitely sure that anyone watching will have really enjoyed our conversation, as I have. And yeah, it'd be wonderful to welcome you back to the channel again in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity and for this wonderful conversation. It was a pleasure. And yeah, for an introvert, it's not easy to speak on podcasts or webinars, but you made this space super safe and friendly. So thank you for that.
Thank you.